Well, welcome everyone, and welcome to the Choroideremia Research Foundation State of the CRF. We're very happy and fortunate that you're here joining us today. Thank you so much. My name is Beth Foss, and I am the Director of Operations of the CRF, and I'll be your host today. This is your foundation. And being a part of this foundation, we're very grateful that you took time out of your Saturday during a very busy holiday season. And with that holiday, we're reminded that the CRF is a professional 501(c), but we're also a family, and we're celebrating that together today to give you some information about the mission, where we've been and where we're going, and the strategies of what we're going to do to get there for the remaining part of this fiscal year and the next fiscal year. Of course, we're using Zoom, and most of you are very well versed on how to use Zoom. We're using the webinar feature, which means that we'll be using a chat version. So as you meet your presenters, we're going to be having today a panel of volunteers, board members, committee chairs, and staff today. But as you have questions, go ahead, type them up. We'll answer them at the end. That's part of my job, and we'll be sure to answer hopefully each and every one. We are recording this today, so if you would like to look at it again or share it with your family and friends, please feel free to do so. We'll probably have it up in a couple days on our YouTube channel. You know, I'm very honored and I'm really grateful to work alongside a group of incredibly dedicated people. They're my friends, very good friends. And we're all striving real mightily to reach our goal of getting a treatment and ultimately a cure for CHM. But that's just part of our mission. The other part of it is to provide support and education for all of you in the meantime. So I think I covered all the bases. We'll go ahead and get started without further ado. And we will be starting with Neal Bench, who is our president of the CRF. Neal, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Okay, thank you very much, Beth. And yes, my name is Neal Bench, and I am the current president of the CRF. We've had many excellent volunteers taking that role over the years. I'm 65, I'm a CHMer, fairly advanced. My wife Jeanette and I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We have two sons, they're 30 years old, twins, and they both live out in Utah, quite a ways away, further in these COVID times, but that's okay. Jeanette and I first found the CRF in 2011. We attended our first conference in 2012, and that conference was presided by, yes, Beth Foss, who did an absolutely phenomenal job running that conference. So good that we then attended 2014, 16, and 18. And we also attended the two science symposiums that CRF hosted, one in 14 and one in 19. And we were already psyched to head up to Rochester in June of 2020 for a robust 20-year recognition of CRF's advances. But as everyone knows, that got sidelined. Since then, the board of directors and the executive committee has surveyed people, had discussions, and has recently concluded that it would be best to postpone our next in-person conference to June of 2022. And you'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks and months. But on to current actions and activities in the CRF. We need to continue, and I do want to highlight continue to think and act globally in areas of research, membership, communications, and other areas. I say continue because the very first grant that CRF ever offered up to a researcher was to a researcher who was from Portugal, working in England and developing a mouse model. And since then, we've continued in that vein. We have members from over 30 countries. We've funded research in 6 countries. And you'll be hearing more about those areas from Dr. Jess Thompson, Cory MacDonald, and Ed Hoffman a little later. In the area of collaboration, the CRF is a member of a number of what we consider strategic organizations. We also partner with a number of corporations, organizations, research institutes, and research entities. And again, you'll be hearing more about our collaboration efforts from Eric Hartman and also from our executive director, Kathi Wagner. Kathi joined us 18 months ago and has been doing an absolutely phenomenal job as both our executive director and our fundraising development director. As for the two of the important areas in the CRF, our staff consists of a number of people. All the positions are part-time, but referring back to Kathi Wagner, as she is filling two of those positions, she is our singular full-time employee. And the staff in this past year and over the years has done just an outstanding job of continuing to move CRF forward. Another very, very important part of the CRF and any organization for that matter are volunteers. The CRF itself could not function without the volunteers that take their time and move the CRF organization forward. Our board of directors are volunteers. All of our committee members are volunteers. Our science advisory board is 100% volunteer. And we also have a few other volunteers that actually Kathi Wagner has found, just searching, looking for people interested in helping out organizations. And that's been beneficial to us. I'd like to take a moment to point out one specific volunteer role, and that is the role of treasurer in any organization, a critical role, has a number of responsibilities that other positions obviously don't have. And we have been fortunate to have a number of people over the years volunteer to take on the role of treasurer, including our current treasurer, Cassidy-Driscoll, who once I'm done speaking, you'll be hearing from her in just a few moments. The other critical need for any organization is financial support. The CRF has been very fortunate to have many generous donors over the years. I'd like to thank all of our past donors. I'd like to especially thank those that have continued to support the CRF in the current year. And I'd also like to give a giant welcome and a big thanks to those who have supported the CRF for the first time in this current fiscal year. And we look forward to continued relationship with all of those. Matt Ricketts is going to speak a little bit about some fundraising opportunities once again after I'm done. And just to reiterate, there's no way the CRF could function without strong financial support. We need that as a necessary requirement for us to meet our goals of finding treatments and cures, a cure for CHM, and also to work towards restoring lost vision due to CHM, along with patient support. So thanks again for everyone being here, and back to you, Beth.
Thanks, Neal. We'll go ahead and progress on to Tara Cassidy-Driscoll, who has been with our organization a number of years and held this really critical position for 4 or 5 years now. Tara, you'll have to tell us that, but it is one that's probably one of the most important in the organization. So Tara, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tara Cassidy-Driscoll, and I've been the treasurer for the CRF for the past 6 years. I live in Massachusetts, just north of Boston. I am a carrier of choroideremia, and I have 2 sons affected with choroideremia. My first slide shows the financials for the CRF for the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2020. This slide compares fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2019. As you can see, the year ending June 30th, 2020 was a very productive revenue year with $554,000, which was up $95,000 from the previous year. The total year-end net assets for 2020 were $807,000, which was down $87,000 from the previous year. This decrease in assets is due to the many outstanding research grants awarded by the CRF's Scientific Advisory Board in 2020. Moving on to the next slide. This slide illustrates the expenses for the CRF's most recently completed fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2020. As you can see, program expenses, which are research grants, patient education, and patient advocacy, make up 82% of the annual spending of the CRF, compared to fundraising and management expenses, which are a fraction of the cost. Continuing on to the last slide, this slide shows the year-to-date financials from the beginning of the current fiscal year, which began July 1st, 2020 through October 31st, 2020, which is our most recently data compiled month. The total income through October 30th, 2020 is $86,000, which is down $138,000 from last year at this time. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has taken a toll on the fundraising efforts of many members of the CRF, which is evident by the decreased income in the current year compared to the previous year. Net income is currently negative $68,000. Typically, the net income does lag behind in the beginning of the fiscal year as grants are paid out during this time, but does equal out and surpass as the year progresses. The current increased negative number in net income is due to the significant increase in research funding lately. The CRF has received many outstanding research proposals that our Scientific Advisory Board has determined are worthy of support. This is excellent and hopeful news, as it shows an increase in interest in choroideremia from the global research community, which means scientific advancements for CHM are accelerating faster than ever. To continue all of these amazing worldwide research projects, the CRF needs everyone's support now more than ever. If anyone has any questions, I will be happy to answer those after the presenters are done. Now I will hand it back to Beth Foss. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. That was awesome. Next, we're going to have Kathi Wagner, who is our executive director, and I cannot just begin to explain how much she has benefited and blessed our organization. So, Kathi, you have a lot to share. Let's get started.
How kind of you, Beth. Thank you very much. Yes, I am the newbie here at the Choroideremia Research Foundation with only about 18 months under my belt. And I do have almost 30 years, I'm dating myself, but a nonprofit fundraising and management experience, particularly with rare diseases. So although I don't personally have a connection, although now I have met many wonderful people who are affected by CHM, previous to working here, I was not familiar with choroideremia. And so this has been a learning experience for me, but I see many really exciting research opportunities on the horizon, which I'll be sharing with you shortly. Many of you know that this will be, or has been, our 20th year of service in 2020. And to date, we have funded over $4 million in early stage research, which has allowed scientists to obtain preliminary data, which often then allows them to go and pursue larger and more significant funding from the NIH or other large grant sources. So we really serve as a seed resource for those researchers. In the last 2 years, we have actually funded over $850,000. And so it's been accelerating significantly in the last few years. There's been a number of, as Tara mentioned, really great proposals coming in lately, and we're very excited to be able to support those. We now also serve over 12,400 patients, family members, donors, and medical professionals from 68 countries. So our global reach is really expanding. We also have achieved a number of really nice credentials. The highest platinum rating was awarded to us from GuideStar, which is a nonprofit charity watchdog group. And we have also been named a top-rated charity by great nonprofits, and we received a 100 out of 100 score from Charity Navigator, which indicates that donors can give with confidence. Next slide, please. Since I've been here in the last year and a half, I've really looked to help to streamline and make internal operations more efficient. One of the first actions I took was launching a new website, which hopefully everyone's had a chance to view recently and visit at curechm.org. We've also purchased a new integrated database, transaction processing, and email software to improve communications and efficiency. And again, many of you probably have seen some of our emails or our event registration pages, which utilize this technology. We also hired a part-time social media and marketing coordinator to increase our outreach and social media presence. And many new volunteers, as it's been mentioned before, have been helping remotely with technology, such as data entry, Google Ads, Google Analytics, website updates, and social media. As we are a remote organization, everything we do is in the cloud or virtually based. And so we have lots of opportunities for volunteers to work from the comfort of their home. Even before COVID, we were remotely based and functioned efficiently in this fashion. And additionally, we've updated some existing organizational policies and procedures to help tighten our framework and, again, make us more organized and efficient as an organization. As Neal mentioned, part of my responsibilities is to supervise the fundraising activities for the organization. And you'll see in the comparisons for the last 3 years that we usually on the odd years actually have more revenue because we're preparing for our annual conference. And although this changed due to COVID this year, you will see that we are ahead from 2018, which is our last non-conference year, although significantly down from last year. And this is in part due to COVID, but also due to the fact that we had our conference. And as you can see in the 2019 column, we also did regional meetings and a scientific symposium that year, which we secured funding for. We have also had a specific estate gift, a bequest in 2019, which was rather significant. But really the largest change in 2019 between this year and last year, and this was through 11/19, we had a number of very large volunteer events last year. And Matt Ricketts will be mentioning some more about some of these folks, but we had an individual, Jason Foley, ride his bike cross country. We had several events. The Oyster family had Oktoberfest. We had Dining in the Dark. And a number of those events, unfortunately, due to COVID, again, cannot be held in person this year. So we have really tried to look for new avenues for individual support, and that includes Facebook fundraising, as well as a membership program, which we initiated this year to compensate for some of those differences. Next slide. So one of the other responsibilities that I've been working on recently is expanding our networking. And this is in a couple of different areas, including biotech, pharma, adaptive technology, and assistive device companies, as well as, next I'll talk about within clinicians, researchers, and allied nonprofits. But regarding the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, I've been reaching out to many companies that are either in, near, or around our space, conducting clinical trials or research in gene therapy, stem cell research, or other inherited retinal diseases to see if they might be interested in adding choroideremia to their research portfolio. And many of them, as they are already working in similar spaces, is something that they seriously are considering for the future as they look towards future indications. We're also able to offer these companies grants to help, again, provide seed funding for some of this baseline research to demonstrate whether it might, their agents might be effective in choroideremia, and whether or not then they would want to pursue it as a further indication. And then we can also provide them with data sets, and we are working on developing additional cell lines and animal models, with which Dr. Jess Thompson will speak more about later in his presentation. We were also able to provide patient perspectives and science advisory board feedback to these companies regarding their clinical trial design and eligibility criteria for patients, any kind of protocols or endpoints for the trial design to help make them successful, because that's what we all want, is to work together to move these trials forward. And then we can also assist with patient education and awareness about trials by sharing that information amongst our emails and social media networks to help folks know that these opportunities exist. Next slide. I wanted to give you just a very brief overview of a few of the companies that I've spoken with to give you an idea of the depth and the breadth of work that is currently occurring in the space. So to start with, J-Site is a company that is working in retinal progenitor cells, and they rescue photoreceptors from degeneration in retinitis pigmentosa currently. So this is one of the companies that potentially could consider CHM as an indication as well. The next two companies, Endogena and Alpine Bio, are launching RP and AMD stem cell trials. So again, in an adjacent space, and it's something that choroideremia is certainly something that they could consider down the road. And so just by planting the seed of interest and letting them know that we are here as a resource, we hope that they might consider expanding their pipeline in the future to include our patients. Another company, Myrica, is exploring a new target. It's a CGMP, which damages photoreceptors, and they have something that helps to prevent that damage. You may have heard of a company, Novartis, and they have early pipeline agents that may also have potential for choroideremia. Execure has work that helps intravitreal uptake, and so to the retinal space, there is an opportunity for that to improve its effectiveness. So that might be something that their work could be in partnership with another company in terms of a collaboration or a two-drug combination. Clearside Bio has a unique suprachoroidal delivery method. Beam Therapeutics has a non-Cas9 gene editing CRISPR delivery method. Acusella is an optogenetics company that is working on expanding the existing visual field. So if someone only has 5% of vision, potentially they could use their technology to expand it to 10 or 15 or 20%. Stride Bio is another company that is generating novel viral vectors for gene therapy that might be more efficient and effective than the current viral vectors in place. GenSight is conducting RP gene therapy currently. Wise Copernicus is planning a choroideremia trial, and they are just currently seeking additional financing to move that forward. Execure is developing technology to create uptake of medicines into the cells and also to get better penetration into the tissues. And then ProQR is conducting RNA editing to reverse mutations. And Vanda is a non-24 sleep-wake disorder company for those individuals who are completely blind, may have trouble sleeping, and this drug helps to regulate their schedules. Next slide. And then, as I mentioned in the other area, the research building among researchers, clinicians, and allied nonprofits, similarly, we can offer these individuals grants and these institutions resources, such as data sets, cell lines, and animal models. We could co-fund collaboratively some grants, which we have been doing, and again, you'll hear more about that later from Dr. Thompson. We encourage them to apply for us for grant applications, and we work to find more patients through these institutions. Genetic testing and educating patients and clinicians that it is important to get genetic testing as a priority. And all in all, again, we're looking to stimulate collaboration. Next slide. Some of the, again, a few of the examples of the companies that I've spoken with, or the institutions that I've spoken with, include the University of Florence. They have 14 choroideremia patients in Italy. And again, it's great that we can call on them if there's a trial in that region, or if we are looking for specific patients or carriers that have certain characteristics or symptoms, we can use those, reach out to these companies or these institutions to collaborate. Cyber ER has 75 choroideremia patients in Spain. Peking Union Hospital in China has 500 choroideremia patients. There are very few institutions in China that see CHM patients, and they are one of the magnets we've learned. Another organization that we've met through Retina International membership or conditional membership is an organization called Retina Bulgaria, and they are one of the only patient support organizations in East Central Europe that covers the Ukraine, Romania, Czechoslovakia, and Australia, among others. So this is a way that we can communicate with patients in that region. Yuan Yu is a similar patient education organization in China and Asia. Remember the Girls is an X-linked organization. So they work, they're a nonprofit that serves anybody affected by X-linked disorders, whether they are choroideremia, X-linked RP, or other inherited disorders. Eversight is working on retinal eye donation programs for choroideremia patients. We've been talking with them about how we might be able to facilitate donations of eyes for research purposes. And then Research to Prevent Blindness is an organization we've talked to about collaborating on some research grants, and the Guaranteed Rate Foundation is one of the many resources that are now listed on our new website that provide patient grants for emergency use if there's need to get to transportation or to hospitals or additional medical care. Guaranteed Rate Foundation is just one of the many resources listed on our website to assist patients directly. Next slide. So we've made over 100 new relationships in the past 18 months. And, again, I am just very impressed by the range of science that is occurring across the globe. I'm incredibly hopeful. It's very promising that there's so much interest, not just in choroideremia, but the inherited retinal disease space in general. And, I'm just thrilled to be a part of this team. Everyone is, so friendly and helpful to work with. And, I look forward to what the next, the next year and many years to come will be. And back to you, Beth.
Wow, that was a lot. Thank you so much for all of this great information, Kathi. And as everyone can see, she has really done a fabulous job taking the CRF a great distance in this few 18 months in the medical research and the networking industry, in addition to shoring up our internal mechanisms. So it's just great to have you on our team, Kathi, and can't wait to see where we're going to go in the next fiscal year. The next person we're going to have join us, you've heard his name a couple times now. It's Jess Thompson. Dr. Jess Thompson is joined the organization last January, I believe. He is a thoracic surgeon, and he now is the chair of our Research, Development, and Regulatory Committee. And he's got great information to tell us about our work, our research that we're doing. So Jess, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jess Thompson, and I would just like to say again to Kathi, thank you so much for the incredible amount of work and support that you offer to our organization. I think everyone could clearly see how much you've done for us, and grateful for that. And so just by way of introduction, a few years ago, my wife found out that she was a carrier. We have 3 sons. 2 of them have been genetically tested and were found to be positive. And as Beth pointed out, I do thoracic surgery. And I have to confess that a couple of years ago when we received this diagnosis, that I still had to remember what a rod and a cone was in the eye. And had to go back to my basic anatomy textbooks because it's an area of medicine that I really had not delved much into. But I have to say that last week I had a patient that I was going to operate on who came to me with a diagnosis of blindness. And I asked him about that. And he said, well, I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I'll bet you've never heard of that. And I could happily say, yes, in fact, I had. And it's been my distinct honor to work with the research committee for a little less than a year, and to be able to work with these incredibly devoted individuals. As you can see from this slide, our overall guiding points that we have for our research committee is, first and foremost, we're focused on the research that will find a cure. And second, we are searching for complementary therapies. So individuals that might not be able to have a cure, or for those individuals that need an adjunctive therapy, we're looking for those. And then finally, as Kathi so kindly demonstrated earlier, we're trying to cultivate relationship with investigators. Next slide. So one of the things that we've tried to do over this past year is start to stimulate progress in the research space. One thing that we're actively working on right now is additional model development. We're looking at a mouse model with some collaborators in Germany. We're beginning to investigate the feasibility and the utility of a large animal swine model. And then we're working with a research lab in Wisconsin to enhance and develop additional stem cell models. All of these models would have their own research space. And what we're trying to do is to have these models available so that as we talk with industry and academics, that we can let them know that we have these models so that if they have research that can be done in this space, they can use these models to enhance their research. As you can see, we're also looking actively at the female carriers. Not much research has been done on the longitudinal progress and the phenotypes of the female carriers. We now know from research that many female carriers actually have significantly reduced eyesight, especially later in their life. And so often in the past, people have said that the female carriers don't need treatment, and we're finding that this is not the case. And so we're starting to do more work with the female carriers, and that's going to be exciting and very fruitful research for the next several years. And then finally, in the recent past, some very smart people led by Chris Moen came together and they developed and drafted what's called a staging document. So for most disease processes, the disease progresses and patients arrive at various stages of disease progression. This is common with cancer, this is common with heart disease, but right now with choroideremia, there's really no stage system. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to validate this staging document that was written, and we're working actively in that area. What this would do is this would allow a new patient presenting to their eye specialist to say, well, I'm at this stage. And that would be important so that the eye specialist could prognosticate how long it would take for this person to go into the next stage and the next stage. And that's on the clinical realm. The utility of a staging document also is important in terms of research, because as you're doing research, you need to be able to determine what stages various research subjects are, so that when you're looking at studies, you can really know that you're comparing apples to apples. That is stage 1 to a stage 1 or stage 3 to a stage 3. And so we feel that's why it's important to get this staging document going. Over the past year, we've really tried to elevate the science and the scientific studies that are coming through and being funded by the Choroideremia Research Foundation. We've made the grant application much more stringent, and we've had to do this gratefully because we've had so many excellent investigators come to us with some projects that are really exciting. I'd just like to point out that this year was the first year that we actually funded the Randy Wheelock Award. And of course, I had an opportunity on multiple occasions to interact with Randy. He was an incredible, incredible resource, especially in the science realm. And we're grateful that we were able to honor his legacy and memory with this Randy Wheelock Award. The exciting thing about this award is that the recipient of this award is a PhD investigator in University of Wisconsin. She's a grad student in the lab. Her lab mentor is a very well-established researcher in this space. And what's exciting is that the project that she is looking at is actually the brainchild of Randy Wheelock. And so it's really kind of a neat full circle. One of the other ways that we're trying to elevate the science is that we've actually are being more proactive with our science advisory board, so that what we can do is we can match the grants and the purpose of the grant with the scientific expertise of various and select members of our scientific advisory board. And we feel that this is going to be much more exciting for us and give us much more power when it comes to grading the research proposals, because the science advisory board members that are going to be grading these grants, they really have the expertise to understand whether or not these grants have true scientific merit and will change the field and advance the field if they are funded. And then finally, we're just doing something that has been done in the past, but we're making sure that the researchers to whom we give granting, that they understand that there's going to be rigorous accountability of these funds. That is, there are regularly scheduled interim reports that they have to complete. And then also we're going to assess the academic productivity of their grants to make sure that if they would come back to us for repeat funding, that we actually got a good return on our investment. Next slide. Thank you. We're also trying to engage people. You've already heard a little bit about our Science Advisory Board and how they're going to be helping us review our grants. What we've also instituted this year and are continuing to organize is that each one of the members of our Science Advisory Board, once they've agreed to be a board member, they'll be on the Science Advisory Board for a 3-year term. At the end of their 3 years, they can always apply for, or we can ask them to serve on the Science Advisory Board again, but they will serve for 3 years. We've also instituted this year, and we've had our first quarterly meeting with just our Science Advisory Board members. All of our Science Advisory Board members, as has been stated, are volunteers. These are experts in their field who very graciously give up their time to help us in our search for a cure for choroideremia. And what we've done with these quarterly meetings is it allows us to really pick their brains as to the direction of the field of science in choroideremia. What this helps us do is, as we meet with academics and as we meet with industry, we can really see and have a better appreciation for where this field is going. And finally, they help us, the Science Advisory Board helps generate ideas. And also what we're trying to do, as Kathi alluded to earlier, is that if we have industry or an academician that has an idea, we can help validate their idea. We're also, as you have seen and as Kathi has admirably demonstrated, we do and try to engage industry leaders, especially those thought leaders that their business is in or close to the choroideremia space. We're also trying to do this with the academic thought leaders as well. I'd just like to take a few slides to show you all of the progress that we've done over the past 2 years with the research that has been funded through the Choroideremia Research Foundation. In the past 2 years, there have been 15 projects. There are 2 projects that should have approval shortly that have been approved for granting. Of those 15 projects, there have been 11 unique investigators, again with 2 pending. It's not just ourselves giving the grant funds, but we have collaborated with various organizations such as CRF Canada and France Choroideremia. We've collaborated with the Penn Orphan Disease Center and the $1 Million Bike Ride, and then also Fight for Sight. And there are other organizations with whom we will have co-funding collaborations in the future. You can also see that the extent of our funding is both national at the university level and international, with countries such as Canada, Portugal, Germany, England, and France, research locations in those countries obtaining funding from us. And I think what the importance of this demonstrates is that what we care about most at the CRF is funding the research that will find a cure. We don't care what nook and cranny from the world it comes from. We want to know all of the investigators, and we want the best research possible, and we're willing to go anywhere to get it. And this is just an overview of some of the projects in broad categories that we've funded over the years, the last 2 years specifically. You can see that we've funded a lot of projects that look specifically at the cellular mechanisms of disease. This is important because truly, if you understand the cellular mechanism of disease, you can look for a cure, and you can also look for alternative therapies. And so you can see that we look specifically at REP1, we look at how cells with choroideremia die, mitochondrial defects, the pathophysiology associated with a REP1 defect, and then the photoreceptor structure and function in patients with choroideremia. And of course, because the big trials right now surround gene therapy specifically, we've funded studies specific to gene therapy trials. We've had we have funded studies that investigators are looking at for follow-up after treatment with gene therapy. We're looking at biomarkers after gene therapy, and we're funding several investigators that are looking for new DNA nanovectors that would potentially replace some of the adenoviruses that are currently being used and are state-of-the-art for gene therapy. In addition, we are looking for a cure and alternative therapies, as I stated earlier, and so we have several projects that are sort of, we put in this other category that would hopefully, these projects in and of themselves might not find a cure, but what they might do is generate hypotheses that would then stimulate research that could help find a cure or an alternative therapy. And you can see, for example, we're looking at, there are two brothers that both have CHM, and they are identical twins, but yet their phenotype expression of the gene is very different. And we're trying to figure out why that would be. And then we're also looking at neuroprotection of in patients with CHM. I believe that's my last slide. I would just like to say that it's been an honor to be associated with the research committee so far, and look forward to any questions or comments you may have at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
That was a lot of information in a short period of time, Dr. Jess. Just as a representative of the foundation, thank you so much to you, to the volunteers who serve and meet monthly with our research, development, and regulatory members on that team. And then, of course, to our science advisory board, who continues to give us guidance. Never has it been more exciting to be a part of this organization and the hope that we're getting with the funded research that we're doing. So thanks so much. We really appreciate having you again on our team, and can't wait to see what's going to be happening in the months ahead. So next, I get to introduce a lovely gentleman who I have not yet met in person, Ed Hoffman. He comes to us from California. He is our now chair of the Publication and Communications Committee, and he's going to tell you a lot more about how we're communicating all of this great news and information to our members. Ed, go ahead. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Beth. And I'm really excited to be here today. I've been involved with the CRF for about a year now. It actually was a little over a year that I discovered it. So I'm really thrilled to be involved and kind of marrying kind of two things that are, really important to me. I've spent my career working in global communications at a lot of public relations firms, running major international campaigns for food companies and food commodities, which is my area of expertise. I'm very encouraged by what Jess just shared with all of us, because as someone who was diagnosed with CRM 25 years ago, I was told there was no cure, and I was told that there was no change, as I would imagine many of you were as well. So the fact that this is even possible in my lifetime is extraordinary. So if I can use my communications background to help this organization that has already given me so much personally, I'm thrilled to do it. So I have a few slides, and I want to tell you what we're going to be doing over the course of the next year. Also, I just wanted to remind everybody on the call, if you have questions, please put them into the chat. That's probably the easiest way to get those answers at the end of this. So whether it's from me, Jess, Kathi, any of the speakers, just go ahead and just put them right into the chat. And Beth is going to monitor that, and that'll help us, navigate that at the end of this presentation. So what are we doing this year for communications? We have three goals basically for the communications group, which is to increase awareness just of the organization itself. As I mentioned, I was diagnosed 25 years ago, and I only heard about CRF last October or September, I think, through a Google alert. So what can we do to help really drive awareness just for the organization? We're also interested in driving membership. Kathi talked about the new membership program that was introduced, and we've already had a really wonderful response to that. We want to be able to drive membership for the organization over the course of this next year. And we also want to increase their engagement. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we want people to be not just passively absorbing information, but what role can members take in terms of engaging to make sure that it's relevant, to make sure that it's of interest, and hopefully maybe sharing it with people as well. Who we're talking to, we have a really wide net here of people that we're reaching out throughout this program, from researchers and clinicians to different services and pharma and biotech to support some of Kathy's networking, as well as CHMers like myself and some of you, and family members as well. So, again, we have lots of different activities here to help reach all of this, to help reach this group. And the types of things we're doing are media relations. So when we are going to make a research award, for example, some of the things that Jess talked about, we want to tell the world about it. We want to tell people that that's what we're doing and be able to kind of share that through media relations. So that's a great example of that. Community engagement. We have a pretty active, actually more than pretty active, we have a very active social media presence. We were actually just talking about the other day that we need to kind of manage this better. We have so much information that we could start bombarding people's inboxes with. So again, how can we manage that to really engage the community that's interested? Member development, we have an exciting program. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And then as well as just supporting the committee, some of the other committees. So whether it be supporting Jess's committee with media relations, or whether it be supporting the fundraising committee with all of the emails and social media posts for Giving Tuesday that just happened this week, and then also our year-end appeal. So it's kind of the role we get to kind of be involved with all the different committees. Next slide. So here's just an example. I'm not going to go through and kind of present our whole program, but I just wanted to kind of hit on a few highlights here. And I think one of the things that we're most excited about, and it's new territory for us. So we are taking kind of a test and learn, if you will, approach before we really make a bigger commitment to it, is this identification initiative. And it's working with a partner, Deep Intent. And it's a little techie, and it's a little techie in its kind of explanation, but in short, what Deep Intent does is they build predictive models for advertising campaigns. And what they do is they have access to insurance claim information. And as you all may be familiar with looking at insurance claim, everything has a code. So it's pulling the codes from insurance claims, marrying that with consumer behavior, and then serving up advertising, banner ads, online advertising to people who have vision impairment, CHM, retinal pigmentosis. So again, using these different insurance claims, they sort of put this in a model, or they build a model in order to serve up ads. So maybe a way of kind of thinking about that in layman's terms, and those are the kind of terms that I need, is if you go to look at a pair of shoes on a website, and then suddenly you're over on a completely other website and you have a shoe ad, it's the same kind of thing in terms of being able to track. So that could either excite you or unnerve you, but either way, it is possible for us to go find people and bring them to the foundation's website. And that's what our goal is with this campaign. As I mentioned, we're testing it to learn from it because there is a financial commitment, and we are trying to identify a partner or a sponsor to help underwrite some of that. So again, we just want to be mindful of resources and make sure that it's really having a benefit. So, and you can read kind of what else is on here. We were doing our newsletters and certainly our webinars and chats really dialed up as well. The foundation has, so we want to be able to support those activities too. Next slide. So how can you help? And this is my plea to all of you, and please share with your other family members too, is, as Kathy mentioned, we brought on somebody part-time to help with social media, and we're really active on social media. And we're kind of sharpening our focus right now in terms of our content, the cadence of the content and information that we're putting out. So, but you can help us, and this is part of that member engagement piece. So not only that member engagement piece. So the first thing you can do is just follow us on social media. Just make sure you're current on the information that we have. And here are all the different URLs for that. But again, probably the good takeaway from this is just remember here CHM, and then go into your social platforms and find us that way. We really encourage you to like the content if you like it, comment on it, tell us, what's working, what isn't working, and then most importantly, sharing it and sharing it for other people, because that just helps us very organically spread the word. And that would be a huge help and much appreciated. Next slide. Great. So a couple other things. So Amazon Smile apparently has been around. We've had a Amazon Smile link for a while, and it's something that we want to draw more attention to, because if you're not familiar with the Amazon Smile program, it's a wonderful philanthropic program, which basically the purchases that you make through the Amazon Smile portal, we get a little bit of money if you designate us. So these are the instructions for how you can activate it if you haven't activated it. And then if you had, I'm a good example of that. I actually used to have a different organization and I had to go in and kind of figure out how to change that once we knew that we had this. So these are the instructions. We would really, really appreciate it. It takes about 2 minutes to do. You can do it on your desktop or on your mobile, and we just start collecting money based on purchases that you make on Amazon. And if you're like me, even before COVID, my husband and I, we're on Amazon all the time buying things. So it can really add up very quickly. Next slide. I think I might be finished that. I am finished. So before I kind of
I apologize. My audio was not clicking on. Please finish up, Ed.
That's okay. My last comment is, or my last point is, one is, if you're interested in helping out, we have lots of different ways that you can get involved and help doing research of different doctors' offices, because we have brochures we want to distribute. We're looking to do some more collaborations with different doctors' offices that have their own social presence. So if you're interested in helping, we really appreciate it. Probably can never have too few volunteers. And again, I'm just really grateful to be part of this organization and be able to help it in some way, because it's already given me so much just from a sense of community. So thank you very much. And Beth, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ed. That was just great. And I apologize there at the little blip here at the end. But it certainly is, it's so enlightening and encouraging, and great to know that we have somebody at the helm who really does this professionally and can help our organization meet the needs and keep us on track via social media and the internet, which is so key during these times especially. So thank you so much for that great slide presentation. I'm going to segue over to Matt Ricketts. We got your photo up here a little early, Matt. Nice photo. Matt is the director of our fundraising committee, and his wife Angela is on the board of directors. So Matt, please share with us what you have.
Hi guys. Again, Matt Ricketts. My wife and I are from St. Louis, Missouri. We have 3 children, 2 daughters, and a son who is affected. And so we wanted to get involved with the CRF early on, and so we, started small. We did probably a small fundraiser where we raised a couple $100, and our next big kind of introduction to the CRF was going to an annual conference, which I think once this is all over and we can be back in person, I think that's an incredible experience if you can get the opportunity to go and be in person. It really is like a family reunion. Cory's going to be up pretty soon after me, and he really is, knows everyone. For a guy that only has 1 degree of vision, he seems to recognize everyone and finds a way to make everyone feel at home. But you'll find that community with a lot of people. So I'm going to just tell a funny story about how I actually ended up in this position. It had to do with going to that first conference. So I had met Stephanie Sims, who appears to be on the call here at that conference, and her husband, and she was planning on doing another Ironman for her 40th birthday. And, we got into that because I used to ride bikes and race bikes, but I was pretty out of shape at the time, probably pushing close to 300 pounds and, still riding my bike and whatnot, but not really in any kind of shape to do this. And Stephanie kind of challenged me at the time. She's like, "You should do an Ironman." And I was humble enough to say, I think I could. And just not even really no question asked. I'm like, yeah, I'm probably in the worst shape of my life. I think I should do that with you. So she talked me into doing an Ironman in 2019. We signed up and did the Arizona Ironman, and I'd done a few other things in between that with her and built up to that. But that was a pretty bold move on my part to think that was just going to be so easy. It was probably one of the more challenging things that I've ever accomplished athletically. And I do thank her for pushing me into that. So that's how I found myself involved with Team CHM and in the fundraising chair, is because in that time of doing that event, my family's probably raised at least $50,000 for the CRF over that period of time, through some big events and some just small fundraising as well. So I want to kind of focus on some other people that have done some really great things in the last year. We've had some amazing accomplishments through the Team CHM, and I've been happy to try and, anything that I've been able to do as far as getting people gear, any training support that they need, any fundraising support. But also, I learned a lot from my predecessor, Stephanie. Stephanie was the fundraising chair prior to me, and I worked on her committee, and we did a lot of this together. But we had a really cool event last year. Jason Foley, his goal was to raise $100,000, and he rode coast to coast from San Diego to basically Jacksonville, Florida on a bike. Didn't really do any training, was just a physically fit guy, decided he was going to go do this. He's an affected individual, and he made it happen. He rode his bike coast to coast, and I do think he would have hit his $100,000 goal had COVID not really come into full effect right at the end of his event. But he was well on his way to doing that. The $1 Million Bike Ride is an incredible event that you can either do in person or virtually. We did it virtual this year due to COVID. And we get matching grants, typically a $20,000 match. Previous years have been larger, but they've spread out the funds to more organizations. So our match is about $20,000, and that funds a lot of the great research that Jess was talking about. We had 7 runners for the New York Marathon scheduled for this past November. That would have just happened pretty recently had we been able to do that. And we had 2 guides. So we're going to have 9 members of Team CHM running the New York Marathon this year, all with at least a minimum goal of raising, I believe Kathi can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we set the goal fairly low this year at $2,500 the first year, but we had one runner do it virtually. I want to shout out to John, if I say his name wrong, Solois. He did a virtual marathon, which if you've ever run a marathon, it's hard, but if you do it with no support, basically on your own, it's incredibly hard. Part of the appeal of doing a marathon is the crowd and having, them have all the gels and the fluids for you to take in as you go. And he raised $3,300, so about $3,400 on his own. So that was a pretty incredible event. We have young members doing triathlons. That's a really impressive, achievement. We've got all sorts of people raising funds, doing things as far as fun runs and 5Ks. What I want to say is that you don't have to get roped into doing an Ironman to make this something you can get involved in. You can do a local 5K. You can do a walk, a fun run. You can see there's affected cyclists doing tandems in this picture here. Bruce accomplished the entire course on a tandem last year for the $1 Million Bike Ride. And I think I'm not sure if any other affected riders were able to complete it last year, or in 2019, that were last year we did it in person there. But again, we also have lots of other ways that you can raise funds, and we really have some incredible ideas and people doing things that are out of the ordinary, and some things that are just very simple. So Cory holds a Dining in the Dark event every year. That's been a very big, consistent fundraiser throughout the years. People hold bake sales, garage sales, and give the donations to the CRF. Very simple things. Casual / jean days. I would change jean with a J to G with a G, and encourage your schools and things like that. So my kids go to a Catholic school with uniforms, and so a jean day with a G has been a great fundraiser where all the kids will make a $5 donation to be out of uniform that day. Others have held golf outings, some wine tastings. But think about this: your birthday, having a Facebook fundraiser. Now Facebook. Kathi did some incredible work to get Facebook fundraising tied into the CRF. That was actually a pretty hard ordeal. It took almost a year for them to recognize us and get us into that. So that was a big deal. But Giving Tuesday just happened, and we raised approximately $20,000. I don't know if we quite got there yet, but we're going to get there. And we had $20,000 in matching funds, I believe. So again, your dollars can go a long way because we have other people who can dig a little deeper. If you can only do $10, there's other people that can match and help push a little further. So don't be discouraged by the fact that others are doing something big. Again, everything that we do at this point matters, because especially with us not being able to hold the large events, we need to increase our breadth, not just the depth of everyone, digging deeper, but the breadth. More people participating, more people realizing that they can make a difference, and that they should get roped into helping out and being a part of an organization that, the dollars are going towards something that is very meaningful to all of our lives. So that's all I have. I mean, I certainly just would encourage you guys all to participate any way you can, and that's it for me.
Oh, thanks, Matt. It's a lot of hard work to try to get everybody organized and headed in the right direction, and being able to raise the monies that we need to support research. So we certainly thank you for your role and leading our organization in this capacity. Now, next we have the last three people. We're going to make it pretty short, our staff. So until this point, everyone that you've met except for Kathi are all volunteers. And I just want to make sure I say thank you to everyone. As you can see, there's a lot of time that your organization is putting out for you. So next we have three staff people. All three actually are previous presidents of the organization. So we're going to start off with Cory.
Sorry, had to find my unmute button. Thank you, Beth. Yeah, my name is Cory MacDonald. I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts. I am one of the co-founders and currently the engagement director for the CRF. I'm going to try to make this brief. I have a few things just to give you an idea of what our patient engagement committee has been doing in the past year and will be doing in the future. This organization it grew out of an email-based support group, and we have been really supporting the patient in any which way you can. And everything you've seen before me has been about supporting the patient. And that is what we are about with patient engagement, although it's a little more personal as opposed to organizational with our committee. We continue to provide one-on-one support via phone, email, other means, Facebook Messenger, wherever. During these crazy times, we've also reached out individually to our membership and to as many of the CHM family members as we can to ensure that everyone is just, holding in okay. I've been corresponding with CHMers and parents from many countries, including Czech Republic, Netherlands, New Zealand. Most recently, I even made contact with a CHMer in China via his daughter who was here in the States, which was kind of neat. We started several years ago for our newsletter. We started doing a series of interviews called Meet a CHM Family Member. We've now taken that to the next level, and we've begun a series of video interviews with CHM family members. We've done a few of them so far, and they can be found on our YouTube channel that Ed mentioned to you. If you have a fun story or something that you would like to share with the community, please email info@curechm.org, and we'll put you in the lineup and set up an interview with you. Speaking of support, that long email support group that we've had for 25 years, even before the CRF existed, this email group was there. It's ending. Yahoo, who supported or had that group section, is going away as of December 15th. And this kind of precipitated a search for a new home for people who need support that are not necessarily on social media like Facebook, and for people who are. And we decided to kind of up our game a little bit and not just go with an email base. So I'm happy to announce that mychm.net is now active. It's a message board based. It has a lot of features that you cannot find in social media and or email, and some that are. And we think it's going to be a very, it's going to be the new home for the international CHM support family. And I'm kind of skipping through and doing a Reader's Digest here of my notes because of our time constraints here. We also, this year, we rolled out a new membership program, which, and I lost where I was, excuse me, there we go, okay. In July, we rolled out our new CRF membership framework, free annual, which are $60 a year or $5 a month, and lifetime memberships, which is a one-time $600 payment, are available, each with various different benefits. If you're not a member, I encourage you to add your voice to your fellow CHM family members. If you're not sure if you're a member, which I have gotten that quite a bit, or if you want to learn more about CRF membership, again, contact me at info@curechm.org. And last but not least, a little bit about our CHM patient registry, which we began a few years ago. You're seeing up on the screen a slide showing you the various numbers, but just a couple of notes on this. We have a total of 519 patients from nearly 30 countries enrolled in the CHM patient registry. Now, this may sound good, but when you consider there are almost 7,000 affected males, not even counting the carriers, 7,000 affected males in just the United States, we haven't begun to scratch the surface. Patients in our registry are some of the first to find out when a researcher is recruiting patients for studies and trials. In addition, the higher our registry numbers, the better it looks for the global CHM family, as it shows the world we are active, we're involved, and we're together. If you haven't signed on to the registry, please do so now. It's easy. You just go to the curechm.org website, and on the upper right, you'll see a link that says Join Patient Registry. It only takes a few minutes to fill out the short form. And remember, we want the carriers too. As again, from that slide, you see there's only 115 so far, and I know there's a lot more of you. If you're not sure if you're already in the registry or not, again, contact me and I'll check and I'll let you know. Sorry I had to cut that short, people, but that is it for me. Thank you again very much, everyone, for all of your support, and we'll see you in the various forums, hopefully.
Thanks, Cory. You know, both you and Eric, who are going to be speaking next, are kind of the cornerstones of the organization, in the sense that, you know, you're taking care of things and you're helping people, you know, internally with that support component. And as Eric is now the representative of our advocacy and international, we're kind of doing that both ways. So it's really important that we're doing well in both accounts. So I'm going to introduce Eric next, and he's going to share a little bit about the extent and the breadth of where he's going and what he's doing for our organization.
Well, thank you, Beth, and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in our global CHM family. My name's Eric Hartman. I am 63-year-old New Orleanian, and I have CHM. I have about 1 degree and 1 eye left. And we didn't have any family history because my mother was adopted. And it wasn't until I started having night blindness at age 11 that we found out about it. But having been in this foundation since it began 20 years ago, the one thing that I have learned is that when we as a global CHM community come together in one powerful voice, we can make a difference. My job in advocacy is to amplify our CHM voice. CHM in the United States has about 6,000 patients, potentially. But when you add together all the rare disease groups and patient groups around the United States, Combined, they actually total 30 million patients. That's 10% of the population of the US has some form of rare disease. And when those voices get together as 30 million, they become a profoundly powerful voice. And that's where we as a foundation have decided to turn our energy in advocacy. And this can help us both on the legislative and regulatory end. As you see in this list here, you can see a number of, on the legislative and the regulatory end, these are agencies that, or governmental committees that we work with to make sure our voice is heard. It's more of a big picture arena. Our focus is on the both short term and long term. We want to make sure that we have always got the access to potential research or to treatments, and we want to work to make sure that there are no roadblocks or hindrances that make it impossible for our rare disease communities to go forward. And that, I think, is incredibly important. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Also, there is an advocacy within the industry. You can see here, these are lists of both professional organizations and companies. Our goal here is to develop and maintain relationships with the researchers and the power players that are going to be able to assist us in rolling out treatments and cures for our foundation. They're incredibly important. Along with that is, as we know, the importance, as was stated earlier, the importance of genetic testing. And that's why we want to make sure that we tap into all those resources, especially the wonderful genetic counselors that actually will meet with a patient when they find out they have CHM. And we want to make sure they point those patients to the best support possible, and that is the CRF. Okay, next slide, please. The rare disease advocacy is a very, very important one. This is where we get together with a very, very large group of incredibly successful and knowledgeable rare disease communities. When we became members of these organizations, we have tapped into a great amount of skill set and also programs that we can learn from, but also because we as a foundation have learned things from other foundations over our 20 years. This is also a way of us of paying it forward. But these organizations are going to be crucial and have been for a number of developments within our foundation. Okay, can we have the next slide, please? Also, as advocacy, you can see here the first group are these incredible national groups that are foundations and patient support groups in a number of countries. Many of those have been named already, but these are CHM communities that we have collaborated with and continue to support and co-fund research with. And I want to thank each and every one of those for their incredible support. I also want to note that we have continued our long history of collaboration with the Foundation Fighting Blindness. This year, we actually are collaborating in the support of their free genetic testing program. And I helped host a webinar with them a couple months back, and that's available on our YouTube channel. Also, an important thing this year is the CRF has applied and has been accepted as an interim member of Retina International. This is a global association, initially of national retinal research foundations, and they have just recently opened it up to disease-specific foundations. And we are among the first, the CRF, among the first patient-specific foundations that have been accepted by their foundation. This will give us a platform for a much larger global community, and it's going to be a huge importance. As a matter of fact, I have a 5 a.m. 5-hour webinar tomorrow morning hosted from Vienna. Thank you very much. Anyway, next slide, please. Thank you. And also, I am starting a special initiative, and one of the things we have learned that you've heard early on is we are still trying to find out what makes CHM progress. And we want to find out what we can do to accelerate that. Many of you have graciously participated in natural history studies, and that data has helped in the development of trials and other studies. But that data is sitting with the institutions or the companies that you guys had volunteered your time and efforts to. What we want to do is consolidate that natural history data. And we are partnering with NORD and FDA's new platform that you can see here. This is actually funded by the FDA and is spearheaded by NORD. And what we are going to do, and it's going to be a long-term project, probably over a couple years, is work with these institutions to get depersonalized data from your natural history studies into one consolidated database that can use artificial intelligence and other means of search to help accelerate potential cures or treatments that may occur with technology that we still don't know about, but we've got 20 years of data and we don't want that to be lost. It's way too valuable. So that's pretty much what advocacy is. As Hamilton says, we want to be in the room where it happens. And that's what my job is on the big level. So thank you guys very much for your attention, and back to you, Beth.
Thanks, Eric. That was awesome. A lot of information in a short period of time. And as I was just chatting up with Kathi, I'm going to be batting cleanup. I don't even watch baseball, but I guess that's what they say. Real quickly, my name is Beth Foss, and I am the Director of Operations at this time. And I live in Nottingham, Pennsylvania, which is the southern end of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I'm a carrier of CHM, and my dad is affected. He's actually watching right now. Hi, Dad and Mom. I have 2 sons with choroideremia. One is 28 and the other is 23. As the Director of Operations, I really have a range of duties supporting Kathi, the board, and various committees. Most recently, I've been spending a lot of my time hosting webinars and chats, or providing for the needs of the hosts that are doing so. Since COVID's arrived, we've changed the way that we are kind of doing business, if I can say it that way, and meeting the needs of our members by doing a lot of Zoom training. And since then, we've held over 40 events online. A highlight of the challenging times that we're in is really by expanding our reach internationally by folks who are joining us. Some of them are listed on this slide, such as India, Ireland, the UK, Germany, Netherlands, Mexico, South Africa, Czech Republic. It's awesome to have all these different types of voices on our calls that we're doing a lot of right now. We've also had over 110 new CHMers join and have registered for these types of things. All right, moving forward during the winter, we're going to be having more, we're going to be having more online presence, and you'll be seeing more eventual events, such as, I have the little list in front of me. We're going to be doing some book studies, beer and wine tasting groups, online board gaming, and continuing with the support and friendship groups that we're currently doing, like the Young CHMers, the Moms Group, CHM conversation groups with men that have CHM, and then spouse support groups. So we're trying just to cover all of our bases. And certainly we just want to put out there if anyone has ideas or perhaps there's a gap in the support that we don't see, always just email me, talk to Cory, and we'll be sure that we try to get you into the program, either into the programming or serve your idea. This last screen I have is just how can you help? And we're always looking for more volunteers, more involvement. If you'd like to become more involved at the board level, we're always looking for people that would like to get more ingrained into our system and into the organization. How can you help? You always can make a donation, of course. You can become a member, as Cory covered, doing fundraising like Matt talked about. Joining the patient registry is key, that Cory spoke about, and just volunteering. We're going to be doing more and getting more out to our members about volunteering in the future. So that's going to wrap it up for us. I know Neal wanted to say one more thing before we took the questions, and we actually don't have that many. We only have several. So Neal, why don't you go ahead, and I'm going to encourage all of our panelists to go ahead and you can go on, take your video off, and so we can see your bright, shiny faces if you want. I will do the same, and go ahead, Neal, and share with us what you wanted to tell us.
Thanks, Beth. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
We can, yeah.
Great. Like a quick thank you to all those who took the time and effort to put this presentation together. I thought the information was rock solid. Thanks a lot. Number two, a quick shout out, Matt had mentioned them. Also the University of Pennsylvania Orphan Disease Center. Since we have started doing the $1 Million Bike Ride, we've done 3 events so far, and they have matched in total $110,000 of our donations. It's just been a tremendous partnership between CRF and UPenn ODC. I'll give a shout out to my older brother, who Matt also gave him credit for riding 70 miles in Philadelphia. As usual, Bruce gets the credit, I do the work, no big deal. Also, 2 very important names to the CRF. One is Dr. Chris Moen. He was the president for 5 years before this group selected me to take over when he chose to step down. He graciously accepted the role of Chief Medical Officer upon his stepping down from the presidency. There are no specific responsibilities with that position, which really works well for him because he is a father of 4, full-time worker, and his wife Elise also works full-time. So they don't have much time to do other things. But Dr. Chris Moen is an invaluable asset to the organization, and I took the time to thank him for assuming the role of Chief Medical Officer, which was a new position at CRF. And last but not least, Randy Wheelock. We would not be where we are today without the 10 years of time, effort, and resources that Randy put into the CRF. And he really set us up for the future. Passed away a couple of years ago. It was a really sad day, but he did set us up tremendously, and we have springboarded from there, both what Chris did and Randy had done, and we're really looking forward to the future. I think we're gonna make some great strides. So thanks to everybody.
2 good notes. Thanks, Neal. You know what? We just have one question. Unless people want to quickly, type in your questions now, we can get them answered for you. Tara asks the following question. Sounds like it might go to Jess, but we might have other people as well. My 11-year-old son has CHM. I met with his school to see if he could have the service of learning Braille. He doesn't meet all the requirements to be an individual, to have an IEP, since he isn't blind now. So I guess my question is there anyone who can advocate for my son to his school so he can start to learn Braille? Or should I just start teaching him at home? Or is it even beneficial for him to learn Braille while he still can see? As his mom, what are my opinions or options, excuse me, what are my options for him to help him? Sorry, that's a lot of questions. I want to just say, first of all, Tara, we have a mom's group. So if you would ever like to, it meets the last Thursday of the month, except for this month. We're going to be starting again in January. So reach out to me and I'll make sure you, if you want to, you can join our group. I'm not sure, Ben Kane answered down below, and I'm just going to, this is all in the chat, folks. Ben says, I cannot respond directly to Tara, but I am a high school science teacher and a CHMer. She should talk to the school about a 504 plan rather than an IEP. A 504 is better to address something like a visual impairment. In addition, as her child is 11, it really depends on how affected they are, as it varies so much for all of us. As a student to have services from the school, it must certainly meet criteria. I don't know if any of the other guys on board here would want to just say anything to Tara's question, because actually that's the only one we have unless we get one here at the end.
Well, yeah, this is Cory. Tara, and if you like, we can email later, or you can talk on the phone while I cook dinner. I'm making calzones tonight. So, but Braille, in a larger sense, about the one of the things that many people don't know is only about 18% of blind people actually read Braille, and that number seems to be dropping as time goes on. As technology increases, Braille is becoming a little bit less of the necessity that it used to be. Now, having said that, I don't see any problem with him learning it, and if the school doesn't, if you can't get anywhere with the school, another option might be to contact one of the lighthouses for the blind, or the Hadley School for the Blind, or the Carroll Center for the Blind. There's many different teaching organizations around the country. So depending on where you are in the country, there might be something near you where you could set something up outside of the school system.
And Tara, this is Matt Ricketts, and I can't speak directly to your question, but I have a child about the same age as yours, and those are some of the questions that we, pose to ourselves and to the resources we had when we first went through this. But I would speak to the fact that I don't think it's as necessary with technology and some other things, but you should look into it and look at all your options, and it really depends on where he is. One thing that I think is probably very beneficial that was encouraged early on to us is maybe some nighttime mobility would be maybe a better investment. And maybe potentially, if he is further along in nighttime effectiveness, being introduced to a cane earlier, or some other resources like that, versus Braille. I think that was something that we're working on with our son, because he has pretty advanced night blindness at this point for being only 9 years old. So we found that to be something that we are, kind of thinking ahead of. And there's, again, I think that being involved with the moms group is probably going to be incredibly beneficial to you to kind of answer some of these questions where we can't necessarily give you a definitive answer today, but you can kind of tap into the experience of all these other families that have gone through a lot of this before you. So I think you should take Beth up on that offer. I think that's been really helpful to my wife as well.
Mm, nice.
This is Eric Hartman. I just wanted to add that, generally speaking, as Cory said, the technology is such that for many of us, while our reading speed may be going down, we still are able to read. That being said, we have a great resource for many of you that attended our conference that our keynote speaker was Kristen Smedley. Kristen heads up a really wonderful advocacy group called Thriving Blind. And her sons had a different eye disease where they were all but blind at a very, very young age as a toddler. So they needed Braille. And she has a great set of resources for those people that want to learn it. But I would also say, I would agree that it unless it's a huge onset at this point, I think just a general mobility training or raising the awareness makes perfect sense to me. But if you'd like any more information on getting that training, certainly I can connect you with Kristen and her network of moms.
One thing I'll say too, for everybody that's going to be watching this in the future, and Tara, you know, it includes you, of course. I think most of the people that are on today know about our YouTube channel, but we do have a lot of webinars, and I think 4 of them talk about technology. So there are probably some useful tools on there that you might want to look at that you could implement now, or certainly in the future. I know we'll probably be doing that too. I think that's it, everybody. That's no other questions in the queue right now. So unless you've got about 3 seconds to type quickly, otherwise we're going to wrap it up. And I want to thank everybody today. Thank you to all my friends and my colleagues. Got the thumbs up. We were good to go here. Thanks for everybody who called in today or came in to join our call. And we're, again, I'm just one voice in comparing or combining it with everyone else. We're super excited for what the future has with gene therapy. I have to tell you, go watch Kapil Bharti's webinar that we just did, goodness, Wednesday. It is for the more advanced CHMers, and it talks about stem cell therapy and what's coming down the pike, hopefully, in the next few years. I know time-wise, I know we're not associating times, but anyway, thank you so much. I just want to make sure I thank everybody, and we'll be doing this again.
Thank you, guys.
And
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.